Retirement. The idea of reaching a point in life where you simply stop working and receive an income while not working is a relatively modern concept. For thousands of years, humanity labored from childhood to the grave, most without weekends off or paid vacations. Of course, when the average life expectancy was 35, there really was no reason to consider retirement. The idea of retirement became a normal part of American life after World War II, mainly because of the Social Security Act and the fact that people were living longer. In 1950, the average life expectancy for a man was 66, and today that figure is closer to 75 years. For women, nearly 80.
Retirement is really a relatively modern concept. In fact, we didn't have a real good or formal definition of retirement until some couple decades ago, probably 3-4 decades actually. Let me read to you what a really formal definition of retirement is. It's the termination of and formal withdrawal from a regular job. It's a demographic category, means a category of the population. It's a social status. It's an economic condition. Many people suffer in retirement, by the way, economically. It's a developmental phase in the human lifespan. It's a transition to old age. It's an economically non-productive activity, actually. So retirement is really something that has come into usage since really about World War II. People did retire before that, but if you go back to the beginning of the 20th century, back to the 1900s, the 1910s, when life expectancy was only really under 50 years of age, the average retirement for workers in the early part of that century was 1.2 years, which means really that most people didn't retire at all. They kept working and working until either they got too sick or too old or too frail that they couldn't work, or they were laid off because the people who hired them thought they were too old. And so many people simply did not retire. Well, there were really a couple of things that happened to make retirement possible. Probably the greatest thing that happened, the most important thing that ever happened in the history of retirement, is the passage of the Social Security Act in 1935. With the passage of the Social Security Act, it made possible for the first time a very basic floor of income for older people. The second thing that made retirement possible, obviously, is increased longevity. Because if you didn't live long enough, even though you had some money, retirement became kind of irrelevant. But the big factor here is some basic floor of income. And we call that income an entitlement. An entitlement became the key to retirement. It became the key to a better life for all Americans, not just a few Americans, but all Americans.
With more and more people living longer, you will definitely have an impact on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Those federal programs were not designed for people living the years that they are living at the present time. For example, Social Security, which was enacted in 1935 by Congress, at a time when the life expectancy was probably in the high 60s. Life expectancy today is almost 80. And yet, Social Security programs are still living under the schedule passed in 1935.
Retirement is no longer a brief interlude between work and death. It is common for people today to spend as much as a third of their lives in retirement. Retirement has become one of the most important events of our lives, and like any other major life change, can be viewed as either negative or positive.
I think you have to be very careful when you retire. You think you have all of this time that you can do just about anything that you want to do, but it's amazing how people will call you and ask you to serve on boards or to work on projects or committees. And if you're not protective of your time, you find out that you end up today and you still have 3 or 4 things that you didn't even get to. So I would encourage folks to be very protective of their time. Allow some time to make the transition from work to retirement.
I liked working, and having retired, it took some responsibilities or freedom away from me. My life changed drastically when I lost my husband. So it seemed to me that a focal point of my life was the day that he died, and from then I had a long period of inactivity and unresponsiveness and inability to really get my life back together.
2 years ago, my husband contracted dementia, and that was very negative. And so the last couple of years I've been a caregiver, and that's very difficult. And last month I had to put him in a dementia unit because I could no longer care for him. My children said it was getting too much for me. I'm not used to being alone. We've been married for 55 years. Now all of a sudden I'm alone, and I'm eating alone and sleeping alone, and it's very different. It's almost like a death. It's not a very easy road.
Well, my retirement has been a tough adjustment because I was busy 16 hours a day, and then all of a sudden there are no tasks that have to be done today. You think that when you get to be 60 that you can golf every day, but sometimes your muscles just don't like that. And I put on my goals for this year to do something physical every day. I got to work hard now to keep the muscles in shape.
There are, of course, some negative aspects to retirement, probably loss of some income being the biggest one. Additionally, the friends that I worked with for a number of years I don't see as often anymore, my co-workers. Other than that, offhand, I don't think of too many negative parts of retirement.
It's a major life adjustment. Although most people transition very smoothly through it, there are things that happen. In our American culture, we have such a strong emphasis on productivity that people often equate who they are as a person to the work that they did in their life. Think about it. When you introduce yourself to someone, what's one of the first things you share with them? What you do for a living. We define ourselves by our work roles. Another challenge is, again, because many of the older women of today in retirement were actually in the home, taking care of the home. The home was their element. It was their workplace, their work environment. And all of a sudden they find they got this guy in the middle of their work environment, disrupting their day and their routine. And perhaps they spent many years developing their own life with their friends, with their hobbies, with their activities. And all of a sudden they got this guy at home demanding some of their time and attention. And it's a difficult transition for the woman then in the home too, who is of that older generation. So there's challenges in marriages. They can be really good and sustained marriages, long-term marriages. They have some pretty major challenges and hurdles then, because it's sort of like we got to get to know each other all over again. We have to define our roles as husband and wife again, because certainly how we spend our time and the amount of time we're going to have together is certainly increased.
I think it is an adjustment because when you're in day-to-day work routine, you're away from the home many hours. Usually you get home late at night, so you have very little time really together. So we've been fortunate that we've been rediscovering each other, doing a lot of things together, working on some projects around the house, and as Ruth indicated, the traveling has just been tremendous. Opportunity to visit with family and children.
It feels almost like we're courting all over again.
Honeymoon.
Honeymoon? Oh, okay, honeymoon. The honeymoon. Just lots of fun, and to wake up in the morning and get up and fix breakfast and leisurely enjoy breakfast. To say, well, what are we going to do today? Or stay in bed a little bit longer and watch television, or to pray, enjoy some sermons and some songs. And It's just doing whatever we want to do. It's just really wonderful that we have time now for each other.
You're your own boss for one thing. That's one of the main things. You can get up at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, whatever time you want to, and enjoy yourself. That's it. You don't have anybody to report to.
My wife and I have traveled. We don't travel a great deal because we live in heaven. We live in northern Michigan, and we have right in our neighborhood all kinds of recreational activities and church activities and community activities. My wife sings with 3 different choirs, and that keeps her quite busy. My most rewarding time, I really think, is the time that I have to spend doing church things rather than being in church. It's a matter of having more time for people.
There are many positive things about retirement. One, it's that freedom element that I discussed earlier. Just the whole idea, for the first time in their life, people in retirement are free to make their own choices. And that's refreshing and exciting, whether it be to travel or to pursue leisure or hobbies, or to work or volunteer or get more engaged in their church or their family. It's a very exciting time in one's life because they get to choose the course of the rest of their life.
Like any other major life change, retirement requires planning, not only financial planning, but also planning your new life and realistically thinking about what you are going to do with all the time you used to spend at work. Failure to plan and communicate those plans to your spouse can lead to associated problems.
Retirement really requires a range of planning that people should do because it involves not only finances and health, but you need to look at what you really want to do with retirement. What do you really want to do with the last third of your life? Do you want to just languish around? Do you want to watch soap operas? Do you want to do just reading, which is all fine? Many people like to withdraw from life and do that. But what do we really want to do with life? So we need to plan ahead in terms of not only financial resources in retirement, but we need to look at health concerns, and health concerns can be very much influenced by what we do in terms of physical activity, in terms of nutrition, in terms of avoiding smoking, in terms of moderate alcohol consumption. All of these things are very important to looking ahead.
And think about, what's it like when you take a 2-week vacation? What's it like when you take a 3-week vacation? Have you ever been off a month before? And practice that in small doses of having larger amounts of time off and see what it's like for you. And think about, what else do you like to do besides the work that you've done? What are the places that you've got hobbies that you've liked to, have wanted to maybe for years pursue, but you just really haven't had the time or the energy to do those things? What volunteer efforts are really important to you or that you feel really passionate about, that you could spend some time pursuing those things? And try them out in small doses as you're looking to retire, and see what kinds of things spark your interest and give you energy and kind of some zest for life, and then kind of look at that as a slow, gradual transition instead of, I'm going to go from working 40 to 60 hours a week and then one day it's all changed.
Where our society fails miserably to meet the needs of retirees is we have no form of planning for what is it I want to do with the rest of my life. I have a quarter or a third of my life ahead of me, and people are living longer and healthier lives. But no one's talked to me or encouraged me to think about, what am I going to do with that time? How am I going to make the most of my retirement, of my later life?
Well, I see a lot of people, and I tell them how much they should be saving, and it's just like pulling teeth to get them to get started sometimes, just $25 a month or whatever. But it's contagious, the more you save, the more you want to save, and then you kind of get in the groove a little bit, and it's doing well. But I see a lot of people that just say, hey, why do I need to save? I got Social Security, and that's it. And again, don't forget that only 20% of the people are covered by pensions. So that means the other 80%, if they're not saving, so all they have is Social Security. And Social Security is basically designed so that they don't starve. So, I hope that they're willing. They're going to have a huge adjustment, or they're not going to be retiring. They're going to be the greeters down at Walmart and working at Burger King and stuff like that. They're going to be working until they drop. But for some people, that's what they don't mind doing that. So who am I to say what's right or wrong? Just a financial planner, I know I want the option to be able to stop working.
We're encouraging young folk to look at their retirement at an early age. You're in your 20s, you're in your 30s, to plan for your retirement at that age rather than wait until you're 2 or 3 years before retirement to plan for. And look at the investments and instead of spending the $150 for a pair of sneakers, take that and invest it and have it grow.
How can we best plan then for retirement? As we've heard, financial security is important, but emotional well-being may be even more critical. Feeling useful and productive has no set formula for any of us. Many people find satisfaction working part-time, volunteering to help others, pursuing a creative endeavor, continuing their education, or pursuing a hobby that has been their life's dream.
If you think about it, most of our life is governed by other people. When we're kids, our parents or teachers tell us what to do. When we get into the workforce, we have a boss or a supervisor telling us what to do, or timelines, deadlines, other things that we have to do. Retirement provides first and foremost the opportunity for the retiree to make their own choices. And there's a tremendous freedom that's associated with that.
Think about what kinds of things make a person feel useful and how is a person contributing. And once they're finished working, those variables are still very important to a person. And so they need to find different ways that they can contribute, different ways that they can feel useful. Perhaps that's working part-time. Perhaps it's volunteering. There's many, many different ways that people can feel useful and contribute.
You've got a lot of years ahead of you that you need to fill in to give back to the community, or continue to have that feeling that you're contributing, or that what you're doing is of importance.
People can retire and still live very productive lives. I think they can do a lot. There's so much to do in this country. There's in terms of the volunteerism and giving something back to the country.
We started to talk about what we were going to do after retirement, that it wasn't going to be an opportunity for us to just sit at home and rot away, that we would still be busy. Our whole life and our lifestyle has been one that's been very, very busy. We have to almost make appointments to see each other. And though we are retired from community college and Grand Rapids Public Schools, we're still not retired. And it's not because we just needed to have some work to do. We just think that God intended for us to do additional work, or do His work in a different way.
It's interesting when you think about retiring, you have all of these dreams of grandeur. I had definitely planned on working for Habitat for Humanity, and I wanted to do some things with the church, and hospice was a very important ingredient also, one of the things I wanted to do. I have worked and done some things with Habitat, very, very rewarding. It's highly recommended. I have spent most of my time in hospice, and hospice is a wonderful organization. I am a home volunteer. I work or visit, I can't say it's work, I visit patients for a 4-hour span, and during that time relieve the primary caregiver. The rewards are really beyond measure, and the friendships you make and the little bit of peace that you might offer people, or just being with them and listening, has been very, very fulfilling.
Think about others, get involved with your society. I mean, you belong to the country and you have to give something back, and I think that the less you worry about yourself and your aches and pains. I think it was Vernon Jordan who said that when you get to be 50 and you don't have any aches or pains, you must be dead. So, I mean, we're all going to have aches and pains, but don't focus on them. Have a good time. Live this life. That's what you're here for.
Here's a simple test to check your retirement readiness. Will you have enough retirement income to pay your current monthly debts? Have you planned for the financial future of your dependents? Have you estimated your retirement income from all sources? Have you included a realistic inflation factor that will affect your retirement income? Do you have enough cash reserved to cover a major expense or emergency? Do you have an estimate from the Social Security Administration of your benefits when eligible? Is your retirement income sustainable should you live longer than expected? Have you reviewed all your insurance needs? Have you and your spouse clearly communicated your expectations for retirement? And lastly, have you considered what activities you will devote your time to that will be fulfilling and productive? If you answered no to more of these questions than yes, you may not be ready to retire.
When's the best time to grow an oak tree? 25 years ago. That's when you want to start. Well, the same thing, when's the best time to build a house? 5 years ago. Why? Everything was cheaper. When's the best time to start a retirement plan? If you're not in it, get it started as soon as possible. Sit down with a competent person that can give you some direction. You do a little psychological test, you find out what type of an investor you are, find out what your options are, and really, to save $100 a month, if it's in a pre-tax situation, the average person is 28% tax bracket, 5% state. You're talking 1/3. It's going to cost you $66 to save $100. Uncle Sam's giving you $33 just to do it. So once you get started, it's really easy.
On average, people love retirement. They look forward to it. They enjoy it completely while they're there. They may have their little bumps in the road, but that's all that they are. And that's an important thing to keep in mind.
I know many retirees who actually say they're more busy in retirement than they ever were in their work life, but they're also more fulfilled because they're picking and choosing those things that use their skills that help to fulfill them personally. And so they're giving back, utilizing all their lifetime of experience and the skills that they have.
It's amazing how your time fills up. If you said to me, what exactly is a day in the life of a retiree, I would say, I don't know where the time goes, but it is very, very fulfilling. I've got a lot of activities around church, and when you're free, when your time is free, there's no strings attached. It's amazing how many things that you can find that need to be done that nobody is willing to volunteer for. It also amazes me with the number of retirees that are available that we have so many needs and so few workers. I don't understand it.
She thinks I'm too busy, but it's okay for her to be busy. If she has a project, it's okay.
No,
it's all right.
What I think is, when he gets up in the morning, when he finally goes downstairs, the first thing he does is turn the computer on, and I'm saying, I'm here. That's what I'm thinking. Pay attention to me sometimes.
Don't I pay attention to you?
Yeah, you do, but you turn the computer on first. I go downstairs and I think about your breakfast.
I won't turn the computer on. That's the only complaint, right?
But otherwise, it's, like I said, it's just an opportunity for us to laugh and talk to each other and just actually be silly. It has been just so rewarding. And if I could change anything, it probably would be maybe to have retired earlier.
The options for all of us regarding retirement are many and varied. But whatever you decide, be sure to have your retirement plans in order. The research has proven that the vast majority of retired people are happy with their lives. With proper preparation, you too can join that content majority when you retire. For Successful Aging, I'm Henry Holsteg.